All right, Hooper Kratos here. I'm back at it with some more balance suggestions. Uh, Now into the 5 mana units. There's a lot that's gone on with them recently. The Mummy is, I think, the most powerful unit in the game currently. And one way to balance it out is to have Mr. Goo do full damage. Um, I also mentioned some changes maybe to the poison brick that will also impact how useful the mummy is. But if you have Mr. Goo do full damage to the mummy, I think that will maybe balance him out a little bit. Also, the other 5 mana units need to be strengthened. We're going to get into that in a second, and that will maybe make someone choose one of the other 5 mana units instead of the mummy sometimes. An extreme option for the mummy is to make it a 4 mana unit and reduce its HP. The main right now, the mummy is a combination of immunity to magic bricks and the highest hit points of any unit in the game. It's that common plus the speed of two. It's that combination that's making him so powerful. So one way of balancing him out is to reduce his hit points. Uh, but I don't think his hit points can be reduced much and still make him worth 5 mana. So the way to do it to reduce his hit points and make him still a balanced card, I think, is to make him a 4 mana unit. So then you're choosing basically to play him only for his immunity to magic bricks. That's my suggestion. Um, the dragon, maybe increase the HP to 1800. Basically, I don't like the changes to the 5 mana units that happened in the last set of balance changes, and this is the problem is it basically made the mummy the only 5 mana card that's really usable, and I don't like that. I like people to have strategic options. That maybe in some decks they might pick the dragon, in some decks they might pick the Viking. But right now, I think you're crazy if you pick one of those two over the mummy. So I think the dragon needs its HP increased to 1800 maybe. And another possibility, along with that, or maybe instead of that, is to increase its throne damage to 2 full hearts or 4 throne damage, like Mr. Goo. Um, I its speed is kind of one of its most important factors, and it would be it needs to be more threatening than the mummy. And one way of making it more threatening than the mummy um, is to make it do a little bit more throne damage. So if I get a dragon down and you get a mummy down, I come out ahead. I think that that's a good change for the dragon. The Viking, uh, I like to see its attack damage back to 581. Looks like I need to make the print larger. Oh well. The attack damage needs to go back to 581. We need to increase its hit points back up to maybe around 2,500 or 2,592. That's what the mummy's at right now, I believe. Basically, it needs to survive the poison field. You need to be able to walk the Viking across the poison field. Now, it may come out at the other side of that poison field with very little health, maybe 100, a couple hundred health. But whatever that calculation is, I don't know the precise math here about how fast the Viking travels through the poison field and all that kind of stuff. But whatever that math calculation is, it needs to pop out on the other side of the poison field still alive to make the Viking usable. Otherwise, people will just use the mummy because the Viking can be stopped by the poison field. Mr. Goo. Mr. Goo is a way of balancing out the 5 mana units. Uh, right now, he does a good job of stopping Dragon and Viking. You need maybe something else besides Mr. Goo. But because you can use Mr. Goo to stop them, then you have the possibility maybe of having a deck without any 5 mana units in it. And one way of doing that is you need to fix the damage to the mummy. The Mr. Goo seems to do less damage to the mummy than it does to the Viking and to the dragon, and or to any other unit basically. So it would be nice to see Mr. Goo, um, not do that. Also, I didn't put on here. The another bug with Mr. Goo is that when he is confused, he dies to his own poison trail. So he's immune to an opponent's Mr. Goo, but he's not immune to his own poison trail when he gets confused, which is really a problem. So if you fix these bugs and it actually does a significant amount of damage to the mummy, then you have a possibility of creating decks with, say, like the koala and Mr. Goo, and without a 5 mana unit. It would be risky, but it might be a risk some people would want to take. The angel, I don't. I like where the angel is right now. I think the angel is pretty usable, and I think if any of the changes to the 5 mana units and the pirate changes that I'm going to suggest, I think will increase the usability of the angel a little bit more, and you'll see more people maybe playing with it. I like the fact that the angel is almost useless unless it's healing and shielding something else. So it's a very risky card to have in your deck, but I see more and more people taking the risk, and I like that. I like to see people kind of thinking outside the box with their strategies. So I think that's great. The wizard, if you increase its attack damage just a little bit and also increase the slow debuff that its attacks add just a little, I think the wizard all of a sudden becomes useful against a tank. Currently, that's the weakness of the wizard, is you put it up against the mummy, and the mummy just walks down and just hits the wizard and kills it. It doesn't slow fast enough, and it doesn't do quite enough attack damage. It's always dangerous to increase the wizard's attack damage, so the adjustments to the wizard have to be very minimal to begin with. Maybe start out by making it do attack damage of 78 or 80, and just keep tweaking it until we figure out how high it can go before it becomes overpowered. I think that would be useful. Uh, I have suggestions for the 3 to 4 mana units as well. And first of all, the pirate. I love the spell immunity. I think it's cool. When I'm up against a bot, even, and they randomly throw out the pirate, it does cause me to have to rethink how I'm going to stop that pirate. I like that. I like this type of utility, this type of strategic choice that you're offered as a player. But I think it needs more HP. I think reducing its HP was kind of a mistake. It needs to be somewhere around 850 to 900. If you think about it, the duck has 869. The the pirate, it doesn't matter if the pirate survives the boulder because it can't get hit by the boulder. It can't get hurt by the boulder. So, but it does need to have a little more HP. Maybe make it so that it's got enough HP that it might actually get healed by the angel, or it might. Anyway, it just needs a little more HP. The koala. I think the koala is an overpowered card currently, and it has been for a while. Um, I hate to say it because I like using the koala, but it just is overpowered. First of all, the bugs need to be fixed. It is full of bugs. I actually, it basically there's too many bugs for me to get into, but it jumps at times that it's not supposed to, and that's part of why the koala is overpowered. So these bugs just need to be fixed. I have two options for balancing it out. One is to lower the HP, maybe to 969. I think that would still make it survive the boulder, um, but it would, but it wouldn't be quite so overpowered. Another option is to make it cost 4 mana. Keep everything about the koala the same, and just make it cost 1 more mana. People will probably still play with it, maybe. Uh, then again, it becomes a matter of strategic options. Right now, at 3 mana, it is a bargain, and you're crazy if you're not playing with a koala in your deck because you can do so much with it at 3 mana. The ninja, again, there are bugs with the ninja that need to be fixed. I think that's a real problem with the ninja, um, where things that should block the ninja don't block the ninja and all this kind of stuff. Uh, and I have a new spell idea. It's actually not my idea, but I have an idea for a new spell which will help the ninja, make the ninja more usable. Um, there's things about the ninja that are kind of overpowered, but on the other hand, I think one of the difficulties with the ninja, if you're playing against somebody who's really good at building a brick defense, you'll find very few places where you can play the ninja effectively. And so the new spell idea will help with that. The duck. Right now, the egg needs to do something when it breaks. The the fact that the duck stops to lay an egg makes that's a liability. That is not a help. That egg just does not do enough. In fact, oftentimes you're gifting your opponent uh, that egg. It helps your opponent because the opponent uses it to jump with the koala or to dodge with the ninja. So that egg needs to do something other than just sit there. So maybe when it breaks, it spawns a skeleton. It could be had the same stats as from the grave skeleton or a skeleton brick skeleton, or even weaker. It almost doesn't even matter. It just needs to spawn something, so that you know you actually have a reason to want to lay a bunch of eggs across the no man's land there, and because it will actually do something. Another is maybe have a chance of a random magic brick effect. So the egg won't look any different. Sometimes when you break it, it will do nothing. Other times when you break it, it does some sort of random magic brick effect. Like maybe it produces a confuse field or a flame or a poison field or something like that. It doesn't do it every time. Maybe even it's only like a third of the time or a quarter of the time. It almost doesn't matter. But it can't be a guarantee. But if it does it enough times, then people might find the duck worth playing and just keep playing the duck in order to spawn the eggs in the middle. Um, as of right now, you know, one of the great things about it is its stats, but it moves pretty fast, it attacks pretty hard, but those stats are nearly worthless because it takes this moment to pause and lay an egg in no man's land, and it's vulnerable to attack, and it just gets killed when it's laying the egg. So, anyway, I think those are some good suggestions. The Bazooka Troopa. Surviving the boulder is a big improvement for the Bazooka Troopa. I love that improvement. I think it's a good idea, and but it's still not quite to the point where I'm like, hey, yeah, I'll play with this. Uh, I was one of the first people, I believe, to get the Bazooka Troopa when it first came out, and I used the Bazooka Troopa in all of my decks until it got nerfed really hard. So I I love the Bazooka Troopa. I know how to play with the Bazooka Troopa. Maybe it's time to bring it back to 3 mana, a cost of 3 mana. That's a possibility. Another possibility is to reduce its attack cooldown a little bit again, from maybe down to 5 seconds or 4.5 seconds. At 4 mana, it is hard to justify playing the Bazooka Troopa when oftentimes he only gets off one shot, or even if he gets off more shots, the other player just plays in other lanes and just avoids him until he walks down to your side. So, I mean, there has to be something to kind of tempt people to play with the Bazooka Troopa a little more. And those are my suggestions. Bowbones. Uh, I think the Bowbones is a great card. I loved it when it first came out. It was overpowered when it first came out. My suggestion for making it even more usable right now is to give it a move speed of 4. To me, that is the great thing about Bowbones is that it moves pretty fast. It does a full heart of damage, thrown damage, and it's a ranged unit. So it's got some drawbacks, which is great. I like that it's got strengths and weaknesses. So, one way of making it just a little bit better is to give it a move speed of 4, and then people have got the option of either playing it to use its range or playing it to use its speed, because that's kind of the point of the Bowbones. It's got those two options. Uh, Fix the bug that makes it miss on spawn. If you drop, if you play it to stop an opponent's unit, it will often fire its arrow, and if that unit is too close, the arrow will just fly right through that other unit and miss it completely. This is a bug that I would call it a bug. It needs to be fixed. Either it needs to not shoot that arrow, or that arrow needs to connect, one or the other. I don't really care. It just needs to do one or the other, because that's part of what makes the Bowbones not very usable. The Bomber Skull. I don't really know what to do with the Bomber Skull. Maybe add one to the projectile range might help. Um, you know, if you buff him too much, he's just going to become overpowered. If you leave him as is, I think he's useless. So maybe if you add one to the projectile range, you're going to end up with a usable card. I don't know. So I've got a few more suggestions for one more video.